Hi guys, welcome to part 2 of my light-hearted look at the history of Brisbane Valley. I love these narrow little back roads. They always yield something interesting or a fantastic view. Kick off part 2 with Big Al Cunningham again. Al teamed up with this guy a few times, John Oxley. Now, although Johnny looked like the lead singer of a 60s pop group, he'd been accredited with discovering the Brisbane River. Now that's rubbish. Because hello. What I'm getting at is the Indigenous people had a pretty good foothold on the whole Brisbane Valley. And while the likes of Logan were running around waging war on them, Al and Johnny were working up a really good rapport with the natives. And I reckon that paved the way for this guy. No, not that guy. This guy, David Cannon McConnell. So DC McConnell wandered up the valley in about 1841 and laid claim to a run. Now a run, or a squat, was the legal way of claiming a parcel of land, pretty much anywhere you wanted to. And Dave wasn't just any old squatter. He was a pretty clever one. That run became Crestbrook Station and turned into 120,000 acres of prime river flats. And Crestbrook Station is the oldest known business in Queensland, bar none. And the McConnell family are a bit of a national treasure as far as I'm concerned, from Dave's wife Mary starting the Brisbane Children's Hospital to the up-and-coming matriarch and 6th generation, Caitlin, who not only chairs the RNA, but she's heavily involved in helping out young farmers. Needless to say, it doesn't seem to matter which way you turn in this valley, you're going to run into a McConnell. I'm just going to backtrack down the valley for a minute and tell you about another famous Queenslander. Behind me is Somerset Dam. It was named after Henry Somerset because in 1893 Henry dispatched a rider all the way to Brisbane, nearly 100 kilometres away, to warn of the impending floods. That puts Henry right up there on my good bloke list. Now there's always a McConnell connection in the valley, and here it is. Henry married Dave's daughter Catherine, and together they started Kaboomba Station just south of Crestbrook. And Kaboomba's homestead was right on the fork of the Stanley and Brisbane rivers. Originally, Crestbrook kicked off as a sheep station. Well, that didn't last too long because the Punsey Pommy sheep that David brought up to Crestbrook from England couldn't handle the conditions. So he exchanged them for some hardy cattle, like these good-looking lads. And while we're on the subject of animals, have you ever been riding around Brisbane Valley and seen red deer? What are they doing here? They're poms. Well, funny you should ask. You see, Queen Victoria was so chuffed about getting a state named after her that she sent out a few deer as a thank you present. And who better to work out what to do with them than DC McConnell? Well, old Dave set them free from Crestbrook, and the deer have never looked back. They're flourishing. I actually spotted a herd this morning, just near Somerset Village. Guess who left their 300mm lens at home? Ugh. You gotta love riding into a town that's peppered with old pubs and settler cottages. Toogoolawah was established on a parcel of land that was resumed from Crestbrook Station. The town was established to support the ill-fated mining industry. Once that folded up, it was pretty much propped up by the logging industry. Now there's a heap of quirky stories to tell about Toogoolawah, but I'm running out of time, we better get going. My preferred route north out of Toogoolawah is Ivory Creek Road and Emu Creek Road. There's probably no need to tell you why. At the northern end of Emu Creek Road is the area of Collington. Collington was a busy logging area in the late 1800s, But around about 1914, if you had a crap job like a logger, you jumped at the chance to join this group of diggers that never came home. Very sad. There's something about World War I that just eats at my core. We'll head up to the town of Moore now, and into that good riding I told you about in part 1. Moore is another dinky little logging town. It only got its tag Moore in 1910 when the railway line came through. Before that it was known as Stanley Gate. The reason for that is because it's right at the start of Mount Stanley Station. Guess who was part owner of that? Another McConnell, Dave's brother John. And while we're on the subject of John and the McConnells, it's worth noting that in 1843, Ludwig Leichhardt, the German explorer, called in on Cressbrook on his way up north on an expedition with the promise of finding new lands. Now Dave and John invested in this expedition, thinking it was a great idea. And old Luddy made it all the way up to the top end. Then he found the great sandy desert, and he's never been heard from since. Now we're just coming into the town of Linville. Beautiful little town with a little bit of great history. Firstly, that big white building there. That's the pub. It was built in 1904. And I can assure you, it's a very hard place to drag yourself out of after a couple of Linville brews on a Sunday. A couple of those soldier settlers I told you about back in Comenia, well, things actually worked out for them here. They got a couple of parcels of land, turned them into dairies, and actually did well. Linville was called 9 Mile up until 1905 after a set of cattle yards. The railway got here in 1910. The bitumen drags on for a while as you head north out of Linville, but I can assure you, as it snakes its way along the side of the Brisbane River, it's quite a nice ride. But it's not too long until you come across these buggers. Concrete causeways, nearly always covered in green slime if they're submerged. These buggers will body slam you quicker than Hulk Hogan at a WWE Old Boys convention. This is the way I tackle them. Stay in the wheel tracks, stay off the brakes, stay off the throttle, take it easy. Just up ahead through the trees and off to the right a little bit, you can see Mount Stanley. This is where the bitumen runs out and the fun begins. You take a bit of a lefty and turn on the Western Branch. Now, there's nothing gnarly about Western Branch apart from the causeways, but it is one of the nicest adventure touring rides around. I'm going to shut up now and let you take in the very last part of the beautiful Brisbane Valley. Cater invited himself into the audio. I thought he was a nice touch, so I left him there. Hey, a big shout out to all those who commented, liked and subscribed on the first video. I really appreciate it. I've got a lot of these to do. I'm hoping to get a lot better at it as time goes on. We're just about at our final destination now, the head of the Brisbane River. Well, with water comes life, they reckon, and this is where all the water comes from. That's the very top of the Brisbane River Valley. Hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. Catch you on the next one, eh? Don't forget to do all this and check out AustralianBackroads.com on the net. I use Adventure First panniers because they're tough as. And all my riding gear and helmet cams come from Shark Leathers on the Gold Coast.